Gotta restart and I don't know. We'll figure it out later.
Yo, let me add Phil's thing. What's up?
Yo,
Periscope.
yep.
Now this guy's.
Welcome to our latest live stream.
I gotta get rid of this guy. That little plague doctor was in the middle of the screen. Let's leave him up here for now. So what's going on, boys?
Yo.
What's the weather like in Argentina? This is pretty crazy. We got Texas, Chicago, and Argentina. Some mileage, right?
Yeah. Yep. Weather's beautiful here. No wildfires. Kind of springtime, but I'm bummed. I'm about to leave the summer here to go into the Chicago winter. So,
I mean, it's not winter yet. I don't know. The weather's been nice here all year, man. It's been like it wasn't that hot in the summer, and it wasn't that cold last winter. I mean, I know we'll probably get fucked, this winter. Like, that's like literally the worst thing. One of the worst things about Chicago is it's so goddamn cold in the winter and so goddamn hot in the summer.
Do you think the cold gets worse there in Chicago than in New York?
Definitely. 100%. Yeah. Like New York gets down to
I've never been to both.
Well, like New York gets down to like 0 at the absolute coldest, right? Like maybe, but usually not though, right? It's usually like 7 or 8 degrees on like the coldest day of the year, right? Chicago gets to be like -20 something. Like it goes below 0 and stays like that for like a week at a time. Plus, there's a lot more snow here because of the lake effect.
Yeah, I was wondering how that lake affects all that weather. It probably does make it a lot cold. Well, I saw a bunch of pictures a couple of years back where it was like the deep freeze and like the buildings look like that movie, The Day After Tomorrow.
Yeah, no, that's not too far off, man. It's so cold in the winter.
That's nuts.
I don't know what to do. Like, I want people to come to our stream.
Nah, well, we just gotta go and press on, bro. So it's good to have Phil back. We get to go ahead. I mean, we got a bunch of listens on the show we had you on, Phil. So looks like people are appreciating the conversation.
Yeah, we had
wonderful. I had a blast. I really enjoyed listening to it afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah, with lately we've been experimenting with live streams, so hope you're good with that.
We'll see. We'll find out.
Yeah. So, what were you saying, Matt? That we were gonna ask Phil about his stuff?
Yeah. I mean, did you see that thread he did the other day?
Questions? You want me to just kind of dive in, sketch
Hold
it out?
Hold on.
Oh. See, now that's what happens when you do live streams.
Fatherhood. Family man. Oh no.
Yes, he is.
I don't know. Do you want to? Do you want to give us a rundown?
Yeah, let me. Absolutely.
So why don't you give us a little background in
So
case
I mean,
anybody's
I'm not.
watching that didn't hear? Um,
Yeah, I'm try to start from the bottom, like Drake. So yeah, I'm not trying to like make predictions or foretell the future, be like, oh, I know exactly what's gonna happen. Not at all. And I'm also definitely like I would really love to be wrong about this.
Hmm.
I'm pessimistic about what's about to happen, but I would love so much to like come back on the stream in a couple of months and we can all laugh and be like, man, I was completely wrong. Everything was very chill. Like
Right.
nothing would make me happier. Um, but yeah, given the news and given the perspective of history,
Hmm.
the news starting with that giant Atlantic article that dropped
mhm.
Yeah.
back on the September 23rd or 24th, really exhaustively documenting kind of Republican actions and plans to steal the election. There's a
Yeah.
lot of really alarming stuff in there, and it's just gotten worse since.
Well, yeah,
So
and
yeah, I
it.
really do think that in ways I'll break down in a second, I think they're
Mhm.
going to try to steal the election and that it can be done. I think that when we
Hold on a
in
second. Time out,
history
Tony.
around the world, there are many.
Did you see the
Yep.
thing is your picture's gone? It's just the Skype logo and the where your face was.
Oh, not.
Did you do something?
Oh yeah, I don't know how that happened.
Oh, man.
I don't know. You can hear me. Oh.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. You can keep
Oh
talking,
shit.
and we'll let him figure that out.
Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted you,
Let's
Phil.
check.
No, no,
Yeah.
no, not at all. So yeah, just the like democracies do die. Like democracies fall apart and presidents become dictators. Like that's not some hysterical fear. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
not some Trump derangement syndrome. That's not just like okay, he makes empty threats all the time. Like no, I think that actually we are in some real danger here. Um, and one point to hit there for people on the left like us, like some of the reaction I've gotten to this on Twitter is people saying like, yeah, we haven't lived in a democracy for a long time. Yes and no.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a lot of truth in that. Of course, our democracy is really rickety. We have this corrupt corporate duopoly. We have the electoral college. We have all the money we have in politics. We have gerrymandering. We have voter suppression. We have the death of the Voting Rights Act. We have,
Yeah.
lots of things. But I think that even with all that, even with as bad as it is, like there's still a giant difference between okay, that like flawed but real democracy and the situation if Trump steals the election and stays in power, then like okay, now he's an autocrat. Now he's really loose from these democratic constraints in like big new ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I mean, things have changed a little bit since a few weeks ago with regards to the leads, for example, the debates, Trump having gotten COVID. I mean, do you buy that he actually got sick though?
I do. I don't see how it would be a desirable move otherwise. Like, however strange they might have strategized it, I just don't see how that would be made up. But
Yeah.
of course, I could be
So
wrong.
yeah, so I mean, in that respect, then, with everything that you're talking about, I mean, wouldn't you think that his health would be a little bit of a monkey wrench in the middle of all of that? If because here's the
Certainly,
thing,
yeah,
like the whole time period between now now and the election is so volatile, even without
right,
the debates and with Biden so far ahead, and he's expected to win at this point. If he doesn't win, it would be a major shocker. It would probably exceed 2016 at this point. And
right.
then on top of that, you do put the health issue, and if you're going off of the Herman Cain timeline, um,
Yeah.
it falls right on election day. And then
Right,
the other part that changed a little bit since the last time we spoke with you is RBG passed away.
right.
And you have a lot of really important moving parts all coming together at once in just a couple of weeks.
Yeah, yeah, and that was one of the aspects of that Atlantic story that I think was really important. Is yeah, before that I'd been thinking about yeah, of course Trump is going to try some dirty stuff. Of course there already is all sorts of disinformation stuff going on, and but yeah, if Biden wins by enough, then we'll be safe, right? Like Trump might be able to steal it by a little, but not by a lot. But
Right.
yeah, the Atlantic article changed my thinking on that. It's like no, the there's going to be a huge tilt of the in-person voting leaning right and the mail voting leaning Democratic
Yes.
and Trump, like the Republicans have different plans in place, different legal options, and just the disinformation machine, and also ways that state legislatures can get involved, and also whatever dirty tricks and intimidation and possible ballot destruction happens on election day. Like just there's a lot of things stacked up so that even if the actual votes cast are really like a landslide for Biden, that doesn't necessarily mean we're safe. But no, the health thing, absolutely. That I think that's relevant. That could cause this plan to fall apart or be called off. Right now, or if Trump does worsen and die, that could absolutely change things. But right, it's the Supreme Court. It's the other means they have for legal challenges. It's partly that the Electoral College. Like as far as the Constitution goes, the electors are chosen by state legislatures or state governments.
Right.
So there is, like, in light of the different legal challenges and disinformation, like it's muddying the waters enough that some state legislatures could very easily say no, like our votes were corrupted. There's a lot of suspicious mail-in votes, whatever they might say,
and then they've done a lot of work to lay the groundwork
even though their state voted for Biden.
Yeah, they've done a lot of work to lay the groundwork to completely delegitimize things.
Exactly.
And well, for me, the most interesting scenario has always been what you're describing, which is Trump having a strong showing with in-person voting, possibly ahead on election night, and then having the whole vote turn on mail-in votes.
Yeah.
And then from what we've already seen, or at least seen recently, again, with what sort of action some of the individuals in his camp are willing to take, that part of the things is alarming, and I don't think it can be understated, and I don't think it's hyperbole to go and indulge those kinds of thoughts either.
No,
We've seen the MAGA bomber by now, and we've seen now this whole clique of people that actually tried to kidnap a sitting elected.
Oh my God!
Individual.
Yo.
So on top of that, I don't know what other kind of forces would align with Trump and the Republicans if they did try to call into question the legitimacy of the election.
Right. This makes me want to go in two directions. Also, I'm gonna Dave Chappelle it and smoke a cigarette, but I will say for those watching the live stream that I'm only smoking these here because they're so cheap in Argentina. I'm only smoking for another week. Don't smoke. All right. So this brings up of course, we get to the question of the and how things will play out there. But then we also, what you were just talking about, like the violence of MAGA folks. And so that's where I go. This thread that I guess y'all talked about last night or the night before.
Mm-hmm.
One thing is the violence that we've seen against protesters. Okay, if Trump does steal the election and there's lots of peaceful protest, what are the MAGA folks doing? What are the Proud Boys doing? What are other, like, there can be violence against protesters, and in that case, okay, having some armed leftists there, like, to defend the peaceful protesters, a small number of people could be tremendously important in, like, letting these protests continue and succeed in driving Trump from power. That's just one scenario. But to loop back to the military thing, General Milley saying that, like, the military is not going to get involved. We're going to, respect the decision of the courts and the Congress, which of course sounds right. Like, that's what we want. We don't want the military, like, taking a hold of our democracy or ignoring. But the problem is that, like, this expected effort to steal the election runs through the courts and through the Congress.
Right.
And so when ultimately the stacked Supreme Court with ACB gives a ruling that Trump is the president, the military looking from the outside at what the courts have said, what Congress has said, they go along with it. And our situation is sort of like an inverse from what you think of with, like, the simplest form of coup, where the military just, like, takes control, takes over, kicks out the democratic government. Here it's that our democracy is, like, dying from the inside and ceasing to be a democracy if Trump loses and holds on to power. And while it ceases to be a democracy, it continues holding on to the military. So that's how we end up with, Trump as a dictator, Trump as an unelected autocrat, still in control of the government and the military.
Right.
And in this case, a coup where the military, like, rebelled against what the government was saying, that would like prevent that slide into dictatorship.
Right. Well, I mean, I guess the question at that point is, what will the military go ahead and follow Trump through on something like that?
I don't think so.
And
Right.
and
Yeah, and so I think one.
and pointing out not just the military, but you're talking about law enforcement and other entities of that type. Now, Biden likes to go and brag that he got endorsements from several generals. Trump likes to brag that he has endorsements from the police and all those kinds of people.
I think the police are more a factor, in the immediate term. Like, I think
Mm-hmm.
like those are going to be the ones, like that's who their foot soldiers are going to be, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's not going to be like, like these chuds in Michigan. There's not going to be like groups of them. That's not going to be who is the, you know, that's not who's going to be doing the violence, right? It's going to be the cops,
Right.
right? If there's any kind of protest, that's where the rubber's going to meet the road, right?
I think it could definitely be some of both. I listened
Yeah,
to some clips, interviews with, I think it was Gavin McInnes, that one of the Proud Boys, and one of the things he said that stuck with me was like, all right, it's our job to do the violence. It's the police job to, look the other way.
well,
So I think that certainly is the arrangement sometimes.
how did he frame it? Like he said, like we're going to go help
Like,
Trump do
we
a
Proud
coup?
Boys, it's our job to do the dirty work, and the cops look the other way. Like, we do what they would like to do.
Well, I mean, that's probably not far off from the truth, actually, with you. Think about how, I mean, what the cops try to go ahead and get away with within the confines of their positions. Um, in a scenario like the one you're describing, is it really all that far-fetched that they would feign incompetence or something,
Yeah, and I mean, we've
or
seen over and
take some.
over again such completely opposite treatment of right wing and left wing protesters.
Right. Right. I mean, just to call back, I mean, the individual in Portland that retaliated with deadly force after he was attacked, and he was a left winger. He got gunned down and turned to Swiss cheese by U.S. Marshals.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, yeah,
that's not the same treatment of Kyle Rittenhouse got when he
right.
killed three people, where he
Yeah,
shot three people. Or, but
No, they're
there's a
they'll believe whatever they tell them to believe, right? Like
right.
whatever like talking points are like promulgated from, a handful of their their propagandists will be repeated ad nauseum by every moron chud online and in person, right? You see it. It's like they literally say the exact same shit. Like, and it like as soon as you hear one of their guys, like as soon as you hear like Tim Pool say something, it's going to be repeated, right? Like,
Right.
or like what's his face, Miles Ian Chong. Like they're not like they're good at their job, right? They're good at like coming up with like
Yeah.
formulations of the facts that make it seem like their position is not so batshit crazy, right? Like,
Right. There's an entire infrastructure for disinformation that is much more cohesive than it is on the opposite end of the spectrum. And just we talked about this the other night, Matt. Talking points that come from the president get sent down to Fox News, and the same thing gets set out by every right wing YouTuber and independent media personality, and those same talking points end up getting repeated all online, until they're all singing in one
well, do you think that
MAGA chud
like,
chorus.
I mean, do you think that they need to have like if he's losing on election night? I mean,
Mhm.
I'm sure they're still going to challenge it, right? Like, I'm sure there's still going to be like legal, you know, whatever. Like, they're going
Right.
to
I mean, you've
challenge
said so
everything.
sweepingly, the only way we can lose this election is through fraud. Like, if we lose, it is fake.
Yeah,
And Pence is supposed to be the standard politician, right? And he still wouldn't say there will be a
Right.
peaceful transfer of power.
Right.
There, and the tweet that we brought up the other day, uh, I mean, it's hard to read Trump, right? But if you're taking all these things as as a as a whole, not just taking each thing as an isolated incident, there's a pattern,
Um,
And if he does if he does continue calling in the question until the day of the election,
yeah, no,
um,
I mean,
the legitimacy,
it's
and
clear what he's doing.
afterwards,
He's
he
yeah,
afterwards, I mean, you talked about possibly threatening court action or trying to stop the count or any of these
yeah.
number of things.
It's going to
You
be
know,
like in 2000, right? Like in
Right.
2000, they were doing the recount and they pressured them into stopping, like the Brooks Brothers riot. It's called, right?
Yep.
I
Yep.
I
yeah,
envision something like that going on in multiple different states. It's just a question
Right.
of, like the way Sam Cedar described it. It was like jump balls, right? Like in 2000, they stole a jump ball, right? There was a
And we need
jump
to
ball,
contest every
right,
jump ball in every way,
but they're not
of
going.
course
That's the
legally,
problem, though.
but
It's like,
this kind of stuff, yeah, when it comes to ballot destruction and intimidation stuff, like we can't, we can't just passively watch all of that happen.
but we don't
And
really
then
have
yeah,
an
I think that,
opposition
that a
party,
huge
right? It's like,
right, no, the opposition is useless.
it's like,
The Democrats, yeah, no, like we cannot, like there's
no,
tons of things that the Democratic Party and establishment should be doing and are not, and like that. But
and
yeah, I mean, as far as what we can do, I think that yeah, if some kind of attempt to steal the election goes ahead, and then there will be massive protest, and like that needs to be sustained and that needs to be defended. And that yeah, like ultimately, yeah, it probably does come down to powerful decision makers, like generals. Like, at what point do they stop going along, or is there a point where whatever's left of the government turns on him, or I don't know. It's like that could be because of the difference between a scenario where there's massive protests, but then they're repressed within a couple of weeks, different violence from cops and from militias and from just Trump people in trucks and
I
whatever
mean,
else. And it kind of peters out and Trump holds on to power. Versus no, if those protests had continued and force from right wingers had been met with force, then like okay, that's not talking about beating the United States government or anything like that. That's not talking about facing off against the military. That's just talking about making attempts at repression slower and more costly, and
right,
making repression have to be visible. Like okay, if you're going to do this to us, do it to us here in public on camera.
yeah.
hmm
I mean, I think the end of the day, no matter how many people are in the street, it's not going to change anything unless the courts, like unless they're able to sufficiently challenge what's going on in court, right? Because if they
right,
I
have,
feel like by that point, the courts would be basically irrelevant. Like we only get to that point once the Supreme Court rules that Trump has won.
but like if they have a legal justification for claiming that they won, right? Like if they have whatever some halfway counted votes, like they like in Bolivia where they stopped counting when it got too out of hand,
Sure.
right? Like stuff like that. If they have that and the courts are willing to rule in their favor, the state courts, and they're willing to say enough that they can plausibly claim victory and their people will listen, I think it doesn't matter. They will definitely. The cops are looking for an excuse to beat the hell out of people. Like we know that, right? Like that's what they
Yeah,
live
yeah.
for.
So like at some point, it comes down to a decision on the individual level or as a group, as a movement, whatever. Of yeah, how far are we willing to go? Where are we willing to stop? What are we willing to accept? And I think there's room for, like I was talking about this with some folks on Twitter. I think there's room for a very absolute, just like, no, I will not allow my country to become fascist. Like, I will not live in a fascist country. Like, not that I can stop it, but I can decide, no, I will not accept it. Like, I will fight it to the end.
Well, like
And okay, that doesn't mean I can stop it, but you can draw a line somewhere, and maybe you have to.
if it comes down to it like that, the cops will have no problem using lethal force. Like that's what bugs me
Yeah,
so much is that they.
I think we need to arm ourselves
Well, yeah, but
pronto.
like I said, I'm just not sure how effective that will be without somebody manning the shop in terms of like the legal justifications, like the the legal challenges. These cops, like that's what bugs me so much about none of these politicians, none of these Democrat-run states, these Democrat governors, like none of them are showing any kind of they're none of them are cracking the whip on the cops, right? No one is like
Right.
kind of trying to rein them in. The cops have just gotten more and more lawless as the year has gone on, and they act like, huh,
Yeah.
defund the police, you're crazy, who will protect us if we defund the police? Like
Yeah.
how freaking asinine that is to try to frame it that way when the cops are literally, they're all endorsing Trump. Like all the big police departments are all endorsing him, and we've seen that they're willing to
Right.
go gung ho, balls to the wall, for just because they don't like the protesters like tone, basically, right? It's like
Yeah.
they don't like that they're complaining about the cops, so they're willing to go out there
Yeah.
and shoot them in the head with rubber bullets and just all the crazy shit we've seen this year from the
Yeah.
cops. They're
Yeah.
willing to do whatever, and that's with no real reason, right? There's no reason other
Yeah.
than we hurt their feelings. If there's an actual reason, like, we're trying to steal the election for, our pseudo dictator, or, our putative dictator, like, then they're actually going to be out there and they think they have even more of a, not a, like a justification for using deadly force, right? So no matter how many,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
in some of those scenarios you laid out, I think it
yeah.
would be beneficial if there was people with weapons, but if it's really comes down to it, I don't know, how much we're going to be able to stand up to armed police departments all across the country, you know?
Right. Well, so yeah, so I think there's that huge important question, like, is there some line that you just will not go beyond, will not allow, will not, whatever. But then also, yeah, I think that there's like a fundament, like when I get up there in October, in a couple weeks, and start protesting, like I'm thinking very much in a civil disobedience mindset. I'm expecting to get clubbed and gassed and arrested, and I'm fine with that. I'm not gonna try to, knock out a cop as he's clubbing me. But like, if Trump loses the election and holds on to power, and like, oh my God, our country is now a dictatorship or teetering on the edge of it, like in the early stages, then okay, I feel like the situation has fundamentally changed. Like the ground has
Yes.
moved underneath us, and now we're sort of in a war situation. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and not to dictate exactly what that might mean, but like I say this as somebody who, like, I'm not, I don't know, I'm not comfortable with
Psycho.
revolution as much as many of our fellow leftists. Like I know that like war, that violent conflict of all sorts is like so fucking horrendous in so many ways. So like I don't take talk of like arming ourselves or resisting, Trump's moves like lightly at all. Like it terrifies me, but it just, like, oh my God, this just like really suddenly thrust itself upon us. Like just totally, like, being a democratic socialist, okay, a few months ago, that meant like I want to vote for Bernie Sanders for president. Like,
Yeah.
well,
I want
now it might
healthcare.
mean like armed resistance to keep Trump from becoming a dictator.
No,
I,
that
I,
is no. It's in those scenarios, it's true. I mean, what's the alternative to not going that way? The only alternative, it's either you fight back against the probable dictatorship or you accept the dictatorship. So there's
right.
only two options in that kind of scenario. But I
Yeah,
guess
and there's one thing I want to add
mhm.
there, and sorry, I'm talking too much, but
No,
like,
that's
I
why
think
you're
that it's
here.
crucial that if that does happen, like, okay, however hard that fight would be at first, however messy, awful things would be at first, like, it's only going to get worse. Okay, a month later, 2 months later, a year later, what greater capacity for repression does Trump have? Like, what greater hold on power does he have? How many of his scruples are now lessened even further? Whatever. And just, yeah, so I ended the essay I wrote on this stuff talking about this site just a few blocks from me here, where that
Mhm.
was it's called the Club Atletico, the Club Atletico.
Mm.
That during the dictatorship here in the 70s and 80s, yeah, people were tortured and murdered there, and like that's what, like, Trump can build his own. Trump can expand Guantanamo like very quickly.
And I
So
think
just however
for a
ugly
lot
things
of
would be at
people.
first, like we've got to make our stand there, really. And that again, it's largely in hopes
Mhm.
of he doesn't get to consolidate power. The military does step in. The international pressure becomes too great.
I don't
Whatever
know if
Right.
we
exactly.
can count on
Right,
anything
that's another
internationally.
facet of this too to consider, because if the United States does hold a unique position in the world. So if there was a chance that the country would descend into some kind of dictatorship, would you anticipate a response from the international community?
I haven't tried to read up on this or think too hard about it. I'm not sure how much we could expect any kind of
Hmm.
normal interventions, given like the military and nuclear might that the government in power would have,
Hmm.
until it's not in power. I'm not sure how things might look.
Yeah, it's a big question because you're talking about, the might of the U.S. military, but the way I'm kind of looking at it is, I think there wouldn't be uniformity or a consensus as to whether they'll go ahead and follow Trump into whatever his goals would be. I think
Well,
it would be there would I think there would be some on some side and some on another side, and some would think that this was a left wing communist coup, and then when it's obviously the opposite of it. So
that's what I'm saying
uh
is if there's any kind of if there's any kind of air between the facts and the reality or whatever, they're
mhm,
those people don't care, right? Like they will
right.
complete and the cops I kind of think of the cops as sort of like the the Uber chud, right? Like they're sort of the epitome of every disgusting chud thing you see online, and that's I kind of interpret every cop as being like that basically, without unless they prove otherwise. But they will do everything he says, and they'll continue to do that. And there's nothing there's no argument that'll convince them otherwise, right? Like there's no
Right.
you
But here
can't
we do at
reason
least
with
have the one
them.
comfort that Trump's support among the military is much lower than
Yeah, but
usual
like
for
I
a
said,
Republican
I don't think
president,
he
and a lot
needs
of
the
things he said.
military though.
Um,
That's the thing.
well,
I
but
think
at
it's the
least it's some
cops.
comfort. It's better than if, yeah, yeah, no, you might be right.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I would fucking I would probably enjoy seeing the cops and the military fight each other in the street, but like in
Yeah,
that
but then
scenario, I don't know
again,
if that'll ever
we
come
do
to
have to
pass.
also. Right. Well, I mean, we do also have to consider when federal troops were sent into some of these cities, they weren't exactly allies.
I mean,
So,
it seems like they were most of the time, though, right? Like
The
they,
federal agents Trump sent like Portland and elsewhere.
yeah,
yeah, they
you're
were working
talking
with the
about those
cops for
guys.
real. I mean, I don't know. The Portland cops are from all from like all descriptions, they seem to be like the most in line with like the white supremacist movement, if such a thing is. Obviously it's a thing, but like as far as it's being an organized thing, like I think the Portland ones are kind of have the most direct connection with them, just because they've been working together, these past few years. Um, but I think other police forces would fall in line pretty quickly, especially if they were, had an example from them. Um, hold on, I lost the comments.
Remember, you can always open up the window
Yeah, where's
at the
that at?
top thing. Yeah, the top thing, there's window, and then there's the comments.
Top thing. Oh, um, oh, there it is. Okay. I mean, yeah. Like I said, if I was a blue state mayor or governor or any of that shit, I
Hmm.
would be defunding the police so quickly. Like they're just as militarized, and they're much more like if there is going to be like skirmishes between the cops and any kind of like military, like that is the cops are going to have an
Yeah,
advantage because they're trained for that, right?
right. But
Like
okay,
And
so
like
even
we could
when,
have, I mean, we could
mhm,
have, there's so many ways that things could play out, right? You could have, all right, there's some peaceful protest, then there's some violence against it from MAGA civilians that's met by armed leftists trying to defend the protesters, and then okay, you have some part of the military or state national guards or whatever it might be like mutiny, like stand over on the side of the protesters. And so then yeah, maybe there's a skirmish, or maybe there's just the face off, the prospect of it, and then be that either the prospect or the actual skirmish. Then that's what causes the generals to
well,
now step in and okay, we're calling new
mhm,
elections, reset.
yeah,
no, they
well,
just need a patina of legitimacy, and it'll be enough.
Right, we got to deny them. We got to make that as hard as possible.
right.
Which
So I'm
If
just
you
gonna
if you
read
want to
the
steal it, if they want to steal it, we have to make it messy.
I mean, yeah, if they
So
well,
try a
then
Brooks Brothers
just to
riot,
not make it messy. Try to
well,
prevent it from being stolen, and
Well, just to read back that tweet that I was talking about earlier, Trump when he said, "Now that the radical left Democrats got caught cold in the non-friendly transfer of government,
Hmm.
in fact they spied on my campaign and went for a coup. We are entitled to ask the voters for 4 more years. Please remember this when you vote."
What does that even mean, though?
I,
Like,
yeah, that's the thing. So
He's kept
if
saying
you
he deserves a third term because of the Mueller investigation. Just all this
Yeah, he says all that
nonsense.
kind of crazy shit. This is not like an isolated thing. So, and he, like we said, he hasn't said he'd accept the legitimacy of the election. So, with that in mind, you can't take the answer off the table being that he feels he was slighted, and because he was slighted, regardless of the outcome of the election, he's entitled to have 4 more years of legitimacy in his mind. Legitimacy,
but like, I don't
right?
get
And
the
I mean, we
point
know that if he
of
leaves
tweeting
office,
that,
he's
though.
facing prison and bankruptcy. So
Do,
yeah,
do
no,
you
he's
do you
gonna
think there's
claw.
a do you think there's a real chance of Biden Justice Department going and pursuing him in those cases?
No,
Well, I'm
not a
not
chance
sure
in
what the
hell.
Biden Justice Department would do. I know it's the state of New York that would be
So you'd
very
anticipate
likely to nab him upon leaving the White
Mhm.
House.
Well, we can't really forget that when Cohen had gone to prison, he had his whole thing. Uh, he- Trump was an unindicted co-conspirator in that case,
Right.
and the only reason that Mueller didn't indict him basically was because of his office.
Yeah.
Um,
And
That DOJ opinion that a sitting president can't be indicted. What a mistake.
yeah, I mean,
that's
that
not
was,
even really
but I
a.
mean,
That's not a
that's just
rule,
so
though.
flimsy to make a basis on, right? I
Yeah.
mean, just really, he, if Matt and I, we were very familiar with how you break down some kind of legal analysis. So um, that whole report read like a very long case briefing, basically what it is. So when you do a case briefing, you lay out the elements, you define the elements, and you link the elements back to some sort of hypothetical or some sort of real world scenario in this case. And if all those elements are met, that means that the whatever you're trying to prove was proved.
Right.
And
Applying the
when
law to the facts. You work out
exactly,
the
and
legal
that's what
standard and then see if the elements of that legal standard are
Yes,
met by the
exactly.
facts.
There's a legal standard, and you meet the elements and with the facts of the case, and that's what Mueller did in his report. He said, "Okay, this satisfies this element. This satisfies this element. All the
Right.
elements are
But I
satisfied,
can't
but I
tell you
can't
the
indict him."
punchline.
Yeah, it's like, but you know what? I can't indict him though because there's a constitutional mechanism to deal with somebody who commits a crime of this kind.
Yeah.
Hint, hint.
Yeah. So 2 + 2, I cannot tell you that it equals 4.
Oh,
That's exactly what he did though.
but I think that
And
shows you, like, how kind of like cucked they are by the whole like elites, right? They won't they don't want to admit that there's any kind of harm doing in any sort of white collar crime or corruption or anything like that. Like, we saw, like, instead of going after him for any kind of real issues, the impeachment was about the perfect call, right? Like, they didn't go after him for any of his obvious financial improprieties or anything like that. I mean, I maintain that they didn't do that because they didn't want to expose themselves. Because if they had, could have escalated, he could have hit him back with, like, okay, well, Pelosi, you're corrupt in this way. Like, Adam Schiff, you're doing this thing corrupt. I'm sure all of that stuff is there, and there's a reason why he doesn't talk about stuff like that, right? Like, when he treats these, like,
right.
maniac things about, like, Obamagate and stuff. There's a reason why he doesn't, because I'm sure he has all the dirt he needs to completely destroy any powerful politician, right? He doesn't do
I'm
it
sure.
because that's sort of like the gentleman's agreement that they operate on. And even after all the norms and guardrails that he, obliterated, that one has stuck around because I think, like you're saying, he's trying to watch his ass because he doesn't want them to go after him if he loses. They don't. I think that he thinks that he has to play nice with that aspect, and then he has a better chance of not getting, indicted when he finally leaves office. So, I mean, I think he's definitely terrified of that. But is he, like?
I mean, you don't think he's too egotistical to just think he's gonna get away with everything?
I mean, I think he thinks that, right? Definitely thinks that.
Right.
But like,
But no, you had mentioned before, Matt, about the Republicans, right? And their response if he was to not leave office.
yeah, what did I
I
say?
mean, do you, would well, I mean, again, just to revisit it, I mean, would we anticipate the Republicans just falling in line with whatever maneuver Trump decided to go ahead and do?
If they have that patina of
Yeah, at this point, how
legitimacy,
could we expect anything else?
if they have,
Hit the Kyle,
I mean, if
hit
they
the
have
Kyle.
something, like I said, if they have it, so like, if they don't count all the votes, right, and they stop the vote count while like he's still ahead or while it's close enough, if they can somehow
Mhm.
finagle it so that they stop counting votes when he starts to look like he's about to lose, and then they start with the legal
Mhm.
battles because that's what happened in 2000, and there's no reason to think that kind of thing won't work again. And they have all these state houses. You know, most of the states are Republican controlled, right? Most of the courts are dominated by psycho right wingers.
Well, how many court appointments has he had?
200 and
Well,
something. That's
something like
federal
that
court
because
though. Like state courts are, I think,
uh-huh.
where this will be tried first, right? Like I think they'll have like the state legislatures will,
Mhm.
um, you know, have different rules about because I think the states all have their own voting rules, right? Like it's, I mean, they do, right? We saw that they're different in every single
Right.
state. They all have these little
Right,
idiosyncrasies.
and there's even state legislative or with state legislation dealing with what an elector is allowed to do. So there's a
Yeah, do you
fine
see
and
that? Can you
penalty,
go and
which is completely stupid.
do you know anything
Because
about that? Can you go into details about that? About the choosing the electors? Because I know there was an article about that recently about the fact that they could decide to choose their own electors and not, you know,
Yep.
follow through with the votes.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these, yeah, a lot of swing states and others. Yeah, of course, we've got the disproportionate Republican control of state governments. So yeah, a lot of states that might be contested, yeah, have either unified Republican government or at least a Republican legislature. And yeah, they can just choose Trump electors for that state. So
Um,
so
let's
okay,
see if we
so
can do.
with the elector process though, just to back it up, because everybody's going to be looking at election night, but there's like a couple step process here involved. So I think we should go ahead and talk about it in two respects. First, if there's not a peaceful transfer of power, and then the other part of it is if something happens that Trump is incapacitated in the meantime
Oh yeah, we didn't
between
even
the
talk
time
about
that the
that.
electors vote.
Yeah.
Right. So let's talk about a period of time between the election not going Trump's way, Trump his health failing between that whole period between the election night and the time when the electors vote. Um, I mean, I suppose if we're dealing with some sort of challenge to the election before the electors actually go ahead and swear everything in, uh, there would be an open window to continue pursuing that course of action, wouldn't there?
Wait a minute. Can I add a browser window onto this screen, Tony?
Yeah, you have to just click that TV screen thing. Remember at the top, you can flip it
I know
around.
the Atlantic article laid out the different dates, like
Mhm.
when different things are certified and electors are locked in. I'm
Yes.
trying to
So
skim to
it's
find.
in a it's in a December when the electors vote. So let me just get that because I had it pulled up before.
Let's see. Um, I want to try to play around with this electoral map here, and we'll see.
All right.
Um, let me add Phil.
So there's 79 days between the election and the inauguration.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure the electoral college votes in December.
14th.
Okay. So this is
December
the
14th.
consensus.
Yep. So
Um,
so so we're talking. So let's say um, we're in November 28th. There's legal challenges going on while Trump's health is failing. Do you think that there's any aspect of his party that would continue trying to push to keep him in office?
I think they'd rather have Pence. if it didn't matter to
Yeah,
them,
that's
like they
what I would
prefer
think
Trump
too.
because he's easier to get elected. Like Pence would lose, But like I said,
Hmm.
I've said a couple times too. I think pretty much any Republican other than Trump would probably lose pretty handily, right?
Hmm.
They if they don't have to
Well,
actually
if we're
win
believing
though,
the,
they don't have to actually
mhm.
win. I think they would rather do a coup for Pence, right? Because he's under their thumb, like
Right.
he's much more controllable. You know, like Trump, they don't like because they don't trust him. Um, let's see. All right,
So
how's this look to you guys? Do you think?
yeah, as far as the map goes and which state's going which way.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I see it in Skype. Do I need to pull up like the live
uh,
stream itself?
yeah,
Or?
pull up the live stream. Yeah, because that's what we're trying to do the virtual cam so we can see all the stuff that Matt pulls up. But
Yeah.
Uh,
yep,
Okay.
the
So
horrors of technology pulled up. We're at 200. So
dude,
with this map, that map 190 safe for 290 for Biden and 163 for Trump. So
this is
that
the
still leaves 80 out
consensus.
there on the table.
So still not enough. Like even if all 85 of these are added to his 163, that's still
Yeah.
240
So
something.
right.
Let's
So
see.
Biden would still need to go ahead and win Ohio, probably Florida,
I don't think he's going to
and
win.
then I think
Well, I don't know. Do you think he's going to win Arizona?
I, he he's it's not even up for grabs. It's just leaning towards him. So I think that's a probably. I think you probably will win Arizona, if I have to say.
Who, Biden will?
Um, yeah, I think Biden might win Arizona. I don't know if Trump will. I mean, I don't know if Biden will win Florida.
I mean, this is one of the brown ones.
But it's crazy because, well, yeah, I mean, it's crazy because he's up 20 points and it still will hang up on Biden winning Ohio, Biden winning Florida. He has to probably win both of them just by looking at this map to get there, right?
Let's see. Wisconsin. Let's say he wins Minnesota too. Um,
Yeah, because what's that? The total that they have there for
he's
Biden, the
not. I
290, is
mean,
a mix of the
so
leans, right? It's the leaning and the
if he wins
yeah.
Pennsylvania, uh, he's got to win. I mean, let's see.
I think
Yeah, see,
Biden
look at
has to win
this.
Ohio and Florida. Okay.
If he, all right, so um, if he wins, if he wins
Hmm.
Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, um,
Okay.
and most of the East Coast. Um, so he's going to win all of these down here for sure. He's
Well,
gonna. I don't know
yeah.
why. Oh, those
Look,
are red.
I'm
Okay.
certain it.
Nebraska. Who the hell
Oh,
has
they are
Nebraska?
counting into those already.
He's definitely going to win Nebraska. I don't know why
Yeah.
these
Look,
jackasses.
the map was a little bit blurry. Yeah, the map was a little bit blurry for me. So he's already at 270 right there.
Um,
And
I just flipped a
so
bunch
wait,
more. Let's see.
but let's see. Put Biden to get Minnesota.
Okay. How about Wisconsin?
Yeah, flip that one for. I mean, just based off of based off of the polling, like I hate saying that. Like I don't know if we're all just collectively traumatized because of 2016
Yeah.
and everybody had this idea about the polling, but the polling was good actually if you think about it because they had all the national polls had Hillary ahead by like what 3%, and then that's what she ended up winning was like 3% of the national vote.
Yeah, but I mean that doesn't matter,
Everybody was just
right?
wrong about the outcome.
Um, See, look like this. If he wins Wisconsin, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Florida, he has it. You know, like
Let me see.
I think he's definitely going to win Ohio. Indiana. Let's put Wisconsin for
Right.
Biden.
This is yeah, putting a good like these efforts to steal the election, like they're really sweeping and broad, but yeah, it might not all be needed. Like, yeah, we might be just talking dirty stuff in 2 or 3 states that then
Exactly.
gets
That's all he needs.
that happens there and gets okay by the Supreme Court, and that's it. It might not be. It need to be a broader operation, and that might make it easier to
Yeah.
obscure and hide, or not hide exactly, but to spin.
Well, Biden's all in Iowa, right?
I mean, it's gotten closer lately, but that shouldn't go to Trump.
You don't think that Biden will end up taking Ohio?
No.
I
No.
hope so. I mailed in a Biden vote to Ohio from here.
I think
Ordeal,
Biden will take
man. I had
Pennsylvania
a
though.
request.
Right. So if he does take Pennsylvania on your map, then
I think
he'll
he'll
have won
lose.
it.
I think Biden will lose Ohio, but I think he'll win Pennsylvania. So if he wins Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Arizona, New Mexico,
Oh, wait, you
Colorado.
have my tie scenario just about there with I think if you put Nebraska and Maine, the second district, you'll have the tie, right?
Um,
Now that would be fun.
I don't know. I'm already ahead of that. Let's see.
Have them both not reach 270 and then see what happens.
I don't know how to fuck with that. Let's see. Virginia, is Virginia going to be blue? I think
I would say so. It's been blue the last couple times, right? I would think that Virginia's probably gonna turn down. Nebraska, I think Trump's gonna get that.
that's what I'm saying. I marked that one red. Kansas, Oklahoma,
Maine,
Texas.
Maine, the second district of Maine, right? Or first district, one of them.
What am I putting Maine? Maine red?
Put yeah, one red, one blue. Do that.
I don't know how to do that.
Just click on the gray part, bro.
Where is it?
Just click on the gray part on the map on the state
I mean, what gray part?
on Maine.
There's no gray part.
Oh, I thought there was. I thought I saw it.
No, I mean,
But yeah,
you click it and it changes colors, but I
yeah.
don't know how to make it. Let's see. How to
That you had it there.
switch it here.
But okay, so let's put it like that. So then at that point we're gonna have Biden.
Well, this is
Biden's
without
already gonna
third
win, so he would
parties?
need to win. Nah. Oh, come on, third parties don't count this country.
I mean, they can take some electoral votes, can't they?
Well, yeah, that would be a lot more interesting if a
Oh,
third party
split
was a
ones.
little
Here
bit
we
more
go.
viable, and you could say that. Oh
Here's the
yeah,
split
just
ones.
imagine Libertarian Party takes Texas off the table. What does that do?
Oh man.
California goes to the Greens.
Okay.
Actually, I think if that would actually happen,
Yeah.
I think both of them would end up.
If the Green
Short,
Party
right?
could take like Texas, California, and a few other big states, it would be fucking tight, man. Oh man.
Yeah, yeah, no, it would be tight, but I think
If they weren't such a
given the
bunch of
scenario that we're
fucking, they're such a bunch of slackers and cranks, though, right? Like if they actually busted their asses and spent like hundreds of millions of dollars trying to build their brand in the big states like that during the off season, it might be plausible, but obviously it's not.
And like I said, I don't feel like certain of my predictions or whatever, but like in my gut, I do. I bought in, man. This is the way I see it going. I'm just almost like checked out of the electoral analysis. Like they're gonna steal this thing, and it matters how we react in the streets.
How are they going to steal it?
I hope
Like
I'm
said,
wrong.
I
God
don't
damn.
think the streets is where the battle's going to be. I think it's going to be in the courtroom. I really don't
I
like.
think
I think it's already lost in the courtroom.
for me, I'm looking at it as starting in the courtroom and then ending up on the streets, just because, like, when Hillary lost, you saw a bunch of liberals go out there and start protesting. And
If ACB gets on the court before.
Oh, you froze.
oh, there we go.
Oh,
All right, we're
okay,
back.
there you are.
Yes,
If ACB gets on the court before election day, I don't see any way that courts end up suing us.
they're gonna keep trying to push to get her on. on there. You know that.
Anyway, that
Yeah.
what?
But even then, even
If she
without
gets on,
her,
then I think that's it. I don't think we can look for
But
salvation
like,
from
it
the
doesn't
courts.
necessarily gonna be a Supreme Court decision. Like, we need. I mean, it might eventually get to the
It would get
Supreme
appealed
Court.
there.
the state
What decision would there be that could save us that would not get appealed there?
exactly. So if at some point or another, they're
Yeah,
gonna
sure,
do
we'll
what they
get
did in
temporary
2000.
good news from the Ninth Circuit or the Sixth Circuit or wherever, but temporary
Well, I
until
think
it
that
gets to
changes the.
ACB and Kavanaugh and
But I think that
Mr.
changes stuff
Gorsuch.
too, though. Like,
Thomas and just slit his throat.
the Supreme Court and the establishment Republicans, they will only steal
Mhm.
it if it's plausible. Like, they don't want to lose their legitimacy, especially not the Supreme Court. Right, their lifetime
Right.
appointments of doing corporatism, enshrining corporatism into the law for like an entire generation. It's not worth it to them because even if they lose Trump, they still get to do all they want to do. Like, Trump is not really. The Supreme Court is already lost, right? Like, they don't really need him for anything. I think they.
But that's already gone so far that it's going to be packed. You know, if we get a Biden
Right.
and a Democratic Senate,
That's what I'm
they'll
saying.
lose
They
the
don't
court.
really care
So
enough to
Do you
keep
think? I
to
don't
do
even know
that
the
for Trump.
Democrats have the balls to pack the court.
yeah, you might be right there.
No, they definitely don't.
Yeah.
Like straight up, I don't really think they even have the balls to take it
No,
there.
they don't fucking care.
Flip us back around, Matt, so we can
They
come back to
like
the
it,
topic.
man. Like, they like being what they are, you know.
I mean, they like having Trump as a boogeyman, and
And
they
they like
like using
not
him for
governing, man. They
fundraising.
don't want to govern, right? They don't want to. They don't want to be responsible for doing any kind of policies that'll bother the donor class, right? They don't want to take
No,
responsibility
definitely.
for changing any laws that might negatively affect someone's bottom line, right? So they like to constantly
Right.
be like, "Oh shucks, like I wish we could get something done for
The
you, but I really can't."
Yeah, a shallow and half-hearted view
But
of
Yeah,
those
politics and
damn
struggle and
Republicans got the
mistakes and
better of us
necessary gains.
again.
and they say the same thing, I bet, to the donors and the voters, right? Like,
Nothing fundamentally changed.
well,
They do.
they say,
But look,
"Oh, that
that's
sucks." Like, even like like industries that are trying to do terrible shit that they might not
uh
necessarily want to do, and the people obviously don't want them to do it. They might make those kind of promises, like, "Hey, we'll fight for this." I don't know, like AI robot soldier or some, whatever it is. Like, they'll still, you know, the Republicans wouldn't let us do that either. You know what I mean? Like, I think they say literally the same thing to everybody so they can keep collecting donations from all sectors, right? They don't want to
flip us
govern.
back around, Matt. Bring us back to the top. There you go.
Well, um, so we're trying to make this a tie. What do you think? Okay, so this is
Oh,
the
you want to do that
consensus. It says
before? Well,
288 to
okay.
250. So how many do we need to flip to give this to him? To Trump?
To Trump. Well,
Yeah.
you need to flip the ones that he won last time. You just need to flip the Rust Belt. So give him Michigan, give him Pennsylvania,
I don't
and
think
give
he's
him
going to win
Wisconsin.
Michigan.
I don't think he's gonna win Ohio.
You don't think Trump's going to win Ohio?
No,
I definitely think he's going to win Ohio, man. I don't think he's going to win Florida. Ohio is a bunch
I
of
think that
fucking.
Biden's gonna. I think Biden is gonna win Ohio, but lose Florida. I think Florida's just gonna go to Trump.
Um,
But no, it's the same. Okay, because we got to
Ohio's
remember
fucking
the
like
scenario.
psycho chud land, man.
So
Like, more so than Michigan.
in this stealing kind of scenario that Phil's talking about, Matt, what we have to remember what got Trump there in the first place, and it was winning Florida and the entire Rust Belt. That's what it was.
All right.
You know, barring that, and those are states that Hillary was apparently favored by 1 or 2 points at the time, and
Okay.
then that's what ended up happening. Trump ended up taking those Rust Belt states. Now, if he loses any of those, I don't think he makes it. I don't like.
So he
Check
definitely
it.
needs
Do
all
you
of
think
them.
he needed all of them last time?
Wait a
He
minute.
just
So
got
what's
them
two
last time.
more?
This
If I give him all of Maine,
Yeah, give him all of Maine, give him Pennsylvania, and actually right there he's only 10 points off, right? So actually I think if he just wins Michigan or Pennsylvania, then that scenario he would win, right?
254 to 254. Um, hold on. 250 to 252. Trump wins.
Are you trying to work out the tie?
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, the tie would be it's 269 269. I
so
had worked it out before. But in that's probably the most unlikely scenario. It's probably the most fun scenario for me. And so like
You flip the
Phil, if
coin and it lands on its end.
yeah, exactly. So
um,
Phil, say that I think that a tie in that scenario is still the same scenario as if Trump would have lost. I still think it's the exact scenario that he would go through with the courts or with the streets or whatever else he would try to do. Because as we know, the presidency would get chosen by the House of Representatives.
yeah.
Democrats control the House, so they would probably pick Biden,
Yeah, it can't be a tie.
right?
No. No,
So
it's
if
not.
it
That's not how it works,
it
though.
wouldn't
It's state delegations. It's state
no
delegations. It's state
You know, if
delegations.
if state delegations tie, the House gets to choose. That sounds right. I don't.
No, if
Yeah,
it's
yeah
that's
no
state
it's
de-
the
no,
pretty
if
the
it's a
easy.
if the
tie, it goes to the House, but it's not done by
Yeah.
each congressperson gets a vote. It's Oregon gets
Oh,
one vote. So all of the Democrats' advantage is in the big blue states,
Ooh,
right? So New York, California, they have tons of
okay.
senators or congresspeople from those states. So they only get one vote for California, one vote for New York, one vote for Illinois, one vote for Texas. Like they don't get to that
That's
doesn't
the way
so their advantage is
really
nullified.
that's the
Like
way
look at the map. Yes, it's by state delegations. So I'm saying the laws are set up to keep us in a state of permanent gridlock and to have give the chuds an advantage to keep them competitive, right? Because the Democrats
I
should be
wish
every election, like the Democrats should be wiping the floor with them, right? The reason they were able to keep it close is because all the gerrymandering and the procedural bullshit that just keeps this minority in the position of dominance, right? It's like the way the Senate is set up, right? The Senate is incredibly undemocratic, right? That there's, you know, somebody from Wyoming or Montana, their vote counts like 300 times more than somebody from New York, right? Just based on the Senate, because they have two senators, versus every state has two senators. So like all that stuff is set up there to enshrine this sort of minority rule, and the tie
yeah
scenario is another one of those.
that's
It's
in,
another safeguard that
I
throws the
mean
ball to the elite.
that's crazy. Yeah, like so what it says here is that after see what comes next under a tie scenario is a certification of electoral votes has to be done by both the House and the Senate on January 6th. After the new Congress is sworn in, if they disagree on one or more states, it is possible that no candidate will have the 270 votes required to be president before the inauguration on January 20th. So the Constitution gives the House of Representatives the authority to choose a president, but not by simple majority. Rather, each state delegation casts a single vote. Support from a majority of the states, that is 26, is needed to select the winner.
Yeah,
Of course, each state delegation would have to calculate how to cast its vote, but it's a near sure thing that the party's identity of the legislators would be the key. So, yeah, I mean, I just learned something today, but if that's the case, it's like a Senate vote, right?
I mean, it's even less
Essentially,
democratic
it's
than
kind of like a
that
Senate.
because there's one instead of two.
It's almost like a Senate vote. So I mean, you'd have to count out each state that goes blue in a tie scenario.
Oh man, what was it? 269 to 269.
Yeah, it's 269,
I don't know how to
269.
get
You
that
still
one to
fiddling
work.
with that thing?
Yeah, man.
I had to mess with it for a while, bro, and it came out with like a couple of unrealistic scenarios. But um, if in the case of that's why I'm saying a tie is completely is there's not a really good chance of it given the states that each would have to win to match up for it.
I mean, just looking
But
at the polling, it's like, I mean, I don't know. I've seen people post these maps before that had ties that look pretty legit to me. Um, I mean, I don't, I could be wrong. Like, this is all just guesswork, just based on like polls that I've heard. Like,
right,
um, so if he wins Michigan. Let's see. Uh,
No, see, like you have to give them a smaller state. Give them one of those.
um,
Um, give a give Biden Maine, and then you'll get it. Put
Do,
Wisconsin back.
do either
Put
of you know what
Maine.
happens
there
if
we go.
either
I got it.
Biden or
269
Trump
to
die
269.
very close to election day
That
before physical
was the
count?
other thing that we were speculating about too. Is if one of the if one of them die beforehand. I know before the election day, the RNC will have the opportunity to go ahead and choose a new candidate. So
Does
it
it
wouldn't
matter
just
once you're like
automatically go
so
to
close the ballots can't be changed? Does that matter?
I don't think it changes anything if either of them die, really.
no.
Um,
Okay, I think it does
well, they have
though,
to pick a
but
new
the
candidate,
parties
but I
I
don't
think
think they'll pick a new candidate. I think the Republicans will pick Pence and the Democrats will pick Kamala, right? And then
right.
I
I
think the
think that's
vote will turn
exactly
out
what
the
would happen.
same.
I don't think there would be an actual vote on the floor of the convention to change that.
Yeah. I mean, it's
You know,
basically
so
like
but if
people are voting. If it's like if you're not a Republican and you're at all paying attention to see how terrible Trump is, you're voting for Biden, and it could be a ham sandwich, right? Like it doesn't matter. You're voting to get him out of office. You're voting to stop the bleeding, right?
right.
So it doesn't matter who it is, right? It could literally be John Kasich, it could be Mitt Romney. Like, I mean, I don't know, maybe
But
not. Like,
Yep.
I,
uh,
so I mean, if so, yeah. Regardless of what the fact, regardless of um whatever scenario it is, it's gonna end up being one of these four people at best, even even in a crazy scenario like
well,
that.
look at the map I have
But
now, right? This looks pretty feasible to me. I mean,
I mean,
um,
it could be feasible if you're talking about Trump winning Michigan again.
he wins Michigan and Minnesota. But let's see, I
Yeah,
can flip these around, whatever you think is more plausible. Like, I can give, Biden Minnesota and Trump Wisconsin. So if he wins Ohio and Florida, the rest of the South, and Utah, Idaho, Wyoming. I mean, Biden wins the West Coast, Arizona, Colorado, New
mhm,
Mexico, and then New England and Virginia, and Illinois and Wisconsin and Nebraska. That's a tie. I mean, this looks
right.
plausible to me. I mean, if he can pull off Wisconsin and Michigan or in Minnesota, here, let me flip these around.
Uh-huh. Or yeah, I mean, you're
Make
talking
this one
about
big.
Michigan, Florida, Ohio again, right? So, but yo, bring pop us back up to the top, bro. We gotta wrap up.
Um, yeah, man,
One of the
it's gonna be
one thing
tight.
I didn't really hit yet is that I feel like Americans are like
Hmm.
underestimating the seriousness of the danger for like a couple of reasons.
Hmm.
One is that yeah, we tend to not know history very well and to know that there are so many
Right.
democracies that have fallen apart. Another reason I think
Allende.
is just our personal experience that we've just always grown up with the assumption like of course we're a democracy and always will be.
Yeah.
We democracy elsewhere. You're like yeah, we're like the heartland of democracy. It's like a taken for granted. So for these and other reasons, it's like it doesn't feel like it's such a big change could happen. Like some of the reaction I got to this essay and to tweets were like, nah, there's not really a plan, or like, nah, it can't happen here. And
I
it's
mean, it
like,
already
no, like that's
happened. It
exactly my
happened
point.
in
Like, yeah, a lot of us
2000.
feel that way, but we shouldn't. Once we scrutinize it, like those feelings are not based on reliable stuff. Like we need to look more broadly and realize that no, like shit is very real.
No, I think you're right. There is a sense of self-assuredness that people have in our institutions, regardless of how much they distrust them or how much the American people distrust them. I think
Yeah,
a lot of people would gawk at the fact that there would be some kind of overthrow
I
right.
mean,
that goes beyond something of 2000, because
I
something
think
like
there's
2000 seems
also
extremely probable.
it'd be 2000 but with violence thrown in, right? But I think the other
Yeah,
thing
you
that I
see,
think
and
is
something like
happening
that is
is,
harder for people to fathom.
well, like I think the other thing we're seeing is a lot of people, I mean, especially on the left, a lot of people are trying, like they see it as like liberal hysteria, right? Like it's like it's lib
Yes.
shit to talk about coups, right? And I mean, up until recently, it kind of
It might
was,
be.
right? Yeah, I mean, I would have said the same thing 6 months ago, right? But
Yeah.
he's obviously changed his tone, and since then, right? Like since the
And
George
he's
Floyd protest
and
started.
let's just be straight about this. He's way more unhinged than he had than even for him he's
Uh,
unhinged.
I mean,
That's kind of where we are.
He gets further and
but he's
further from the
also
hinge. The two
he's a
parts
worse
of the hinge.
politician though. Is the other thing. Like he in
Right.
2016, like he had the magic. Like he was saying the right things, and now he's just a Facebook grandpa, right? Like he just
I think he was magic at that debate. I had
he wasn't
unpopular takes on
magic.
that. I thought he was
We,
impressive
we
at the
No,
debate. Like
you
man,
know when it
I
came
thought
to
he
that debate,
no, he sucked at the debate, man. I think like he
by
was
lots of
he was
standards,
magic
yes.
on
I'm not
Hannity
saying his
last night.
content was good. He was still his lying,
No,
wrong piece of shit
wait, no,
self.
no, he
no,
But
wasn't
no,
I
funny.
think
He
all that
wasn't charming.
notwithstanding, that like
In
no,
2016,
he
he
wasn't.
owned
But
Hillary, and it was you enjoyed
this
it.
is the reaction I get. But no, I think that like even after all this shit, no, I think there was something that
no,
was
no, no,
artful and
but
effective in some ways with some people. But
no, but
that's a
well,
longer. Yeah, that's a
well, look,
longer.
our immediate takes that we had following the debate was that Trump did better than Biden.
Wrong.
Yeah.
We were completely in the minority in that sense,
Okay.
but
Wrong.
Okay.
we approached it in a way that we just knew that it was going to be a shit show from the start, and we were expecting Trump to be Trump and
I
Biden
said
to
that
talk slow and get talked over.
Wrong.
Right, and I think
he
that a real
accomplished
key
more of
part
his
of this is
goals.
appreciating.
Yes,
Well, I think
exactly.
that a huge like my whole thing here is about like the importance of like dominance and confidence, like the emotional, like gut level social stuff. And like, okay, for a touchstone, you think of that famous Nixon Kennedy debate, one of the
Yes.
first widely televised debates, where like Nixon did better verbally. Like people who listened to it on the radio were like, yeah, no, Nixon won the debate. People who watched it on television and saw them said Kennedy won the debate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so here, I think the deal was that, all right, we can analyze the content that each of them said. That's one thing, but look at how they said it and like how it felt as you heard it. And Trump was very dominant and aggressive. Now, in some ways, that's just his usual self, right? He's just this like arrogant, pushy asshole. So it was partly that, but this was like refined. This was not as flailing and like artless as usual. This was like, I think it was really well prepared to be like the most effective version of his shitty, aggressive, lying self.
You think Trump was
No,
doing
I
this?
agree with that.
I don't think
Yeah,
that at
I
all.
thought so too.
I think
I
he
thought
went out there.
Well, I thought he was.
I thought he was so different from his usual self.
We heard
and then
what
for
they
like the last
said.
quarter, he slid back to usual. But no, those first three quarters, man, it was artful.
I think his
Like,
plan was to do what he did, but I think his plan was to do a little bit less of what he did, and I think he couldn't contain himself because he just like he can't
Yeah.
listen to somebody say bad
Yeah.
shit about him. Like he can't stand there and watch Biden say something because he
No,
fucking.
but I
you know,
thought I thought
so
a
in
lot
that
of his
bubble.
attacks well, I thought a
But
lot
like
of his
part of the
attacks
picture here is that Biden was actually weak, that he completely
Yeah,
ignored
Biden's a
all
little
that kind of
yeah.
social, emotional dominance stuff.
Yeah,
He just kind
Biden's
of
a little bitch,
droned
man.
out
Like
his answers. That like the content was fine, but there was no
he didn't
like
want to
oomph
talk.
it, and even just the wording of it was just more syllables than you need, just mealy mouth,
Yeah,
just hackneyed cliches or idioms that don't come off as charming in context and with the delivery, and just like man. It's like, dude, you are missing so many opportunities. Like some of what you're saying is fine, but you're not like touching your audience emotionally. Like
Like I
you should have
said,
been
Yeah.
trained in this shit. Like
It's
what?
like picture they're like two MCs at like a rap battle, right? Like Donald Trump like grips the mic up and he's like fucking like is delivers his lines and he like is into it, right? And then slams the shit down,
Right.
and then Biden is just kind of like takes it and he like spits like sick bars, but he's just like a little like bitch when he does it, like me. So
Exactly.
I
Right. Yes.
I think Trump accomplished
But
more goals. Like he did better for
Yeah, that's-
himself, right? I think Biden
Right. That's
maintained,
that was
right,
my takeaway.
but didn't score any points. Like he would probably.
Yeah.
I think net. I feel like net gain Trump there, slight, very slight.
And I think the reaction, I think a lot of the reaction just comes from a lot of people being tired of Trump's shit, and then
Yeah.
his shtick is just
He's
kind
not
of worn
funny
out.
anymore, though.
Scenarios.
It's like he was funny in
Yeah.
2016, 2017. He was funny up until this year. This year, he's like menacing, right? Like I don't like him anymore. Like I used to hate his policies, but I used to see him as like
Yeah.
a funny version of like the typical ruling class. And just in the past year,
Right.
he's really kind of I guess like like post Charlottesville, and like it's gotten worse as he's gone on.
I mean,
Like
it's gotten even worse when he's been on the drugs from COVID, and I think
he had magic
given
on Hannity last night, though, man. He was on
he
fire.
was
He was on
bro,
fire. Now
I
I'm
think the
I'm
drugs just hit him
exceptionally
right
young.
that night.
He had so many good lines.
But all right, man. I think it's about time to go ahead and wrap up, bro. So let's go ahead and want to thank Phil for joining us again. And you know what? We're gonna have to have you back after election night, and I think we'll go ahead and let you know that you can go ahead and follow Phil at let me see. Let me get your at right. What was your at now? Or
Phil_smoke.
right, and then you can follow us, our show at Unelectable A. We will do a live stream on Periscope every week.
Jamie, pull
We
it up.
will do our other live streams on YouTube, and you can
Yeah.
go ahead and keep your eyes out
What
for
the hell
those.
happened tonight, man? We were supposed to have another guest on the show. I don't want to blow up her spot, but
No, we're good, bro. At least we got to talk to Phil, and it's always good to have a conversation.
yeah. I'm just
Huge
saying. I'm just
pleasure.
wondering what
Thanks for coming.
happened. You didn't like.
But
Hmm.
well, all right, Matt. Why don't you go ahead and play this out, bro? We'll talk to everybody later.
What is the mystery of why that girl didn't call us back? It's a mystery.
All right.
Later.